What's up, folks? We are back with another episode of On the Delo, not the Delo, as we were just talking about before. And excited for this one. I'm excited for all of them. I'm not gonna bullshit Jeff here, but I am very excited to have him and for him to take his Friday morning to come down here from Chandler, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
Halfway to Vegas here from Chandler.
I know, right? How was the traffic this morning?
It wasn't bad.
No? Yeah. Coming up the 101 this way is, it's not too bad at all.
Everybody else going the other way.
Yeah, exactly. So, thanks for joining me. Let's just dig into it here. You came from Kansas, correct?
Came from Wichita, Kansas.
Yeah. Do you ever go back?
Occasionally. It was a great town to grow up in, but there's, everybody in Wichita is a Kansas City Chiefs fan or a Kansas, KU basketball fan.
Yeah.
And so if you wanted to do something exciting, you're driving a long ways. And so there's not a lot to do except get in trouble. And I wasn't getting too much trouble, but I was having some fun after long days working in the restaurants. You went out to bars and different things. And so my business partner, who was a friend of mine at that restaurant, Carlos O'Kelly's in Wichita, his dad was a co-founder of it. They said, hey, you want to go to Arizona, open up restaurants? And it was a very quick decision.
And that's how it started?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
So how many restaurants, when did you start working in restaurants? What age were you?
14. Okay. I don't even think it was legal because, you're not supposed to be working a certain amount of hours, we rarely hire anybody under 16 now because of, the child labor laws and stuff, which is understandable, except for my kids. You can legally have your own children work for you. And I think a work ethic is very important, and restaurants teach you that. So,
for sure.
But 14, I started working at a really fancy, top of the line restaurant called the Olive Tree. And it was amazing food. And man, I worked like 40 hours a week. I grew up Catholic, and my friends were all very wealthy, and I was not.
Right.
And so to keep up with the Joneses, I had to have a full-time job. And so, I was a freshman in high school working 40 hours a week. And
what were you doing? Like from busing?
Busing tables, and then there would be, they did a lot of big banquets, weddings, different things, and you'd be doing things there. But, this was 1984, and I was making $50 a night in tips.
Holy
in
cow.
1984, that was good money. And
I was going to ask, what was the hourly wage back then? Do you remember?
Oh, it was $2.13 an hour.
Okay, so you do remember.
$2.13 an hour, but so that was I was doing well in high school because of that. What was really funny is when I went to college, though. Even though my parents were not people with means, I didn't qualify for a lot of the student aid and stuff because I made too much money myself, not because of my family, but because of my W-2 I showed too much. So I was like, the hard work was pretty much punished in that way. And
you can't even drive at that point because you're 14.
Yeah, it was pouring rain. One thing my parents really instilled in me is a work ethic. I was blessed with parents who worked hard, and I think I try to instill that in my children because I think it's if not the most important thing, one of the most important things. And so I rode my bike up, in the pouring rain to this place. It was 1.5 miles, 2 miles away.
Yeah.
My mom still remembers this. She just heard I was up there. It was 10 o'clock at night. I was interviewing, as a 14-year-old on a bike, and got the job, came out. She was out there waiting for me. I put my bike in her trunk, and she was mad, but I was just like, Mom, I'm getting a job, I was ecstatic. Besides shoveling snow and mowing lawns, which is stuff I did before that. Now I was a working man, so it was exciting.
Do you think that you and I are the last generation to be able to tell those stories about, walking through the woods, going through the snow? We have driverless cars now.
Yeah. I've instilled work ethic in my kids, but my older son doesn't drive. He doesn't have a car. He doesn't have a license.
Yeah.
He Ubers everywhere.
Right.
Sometimes he pays for it with my account, but he Ubers everywhere. My daughter is the exact opposite. She's 16 and a half, junior in high school, and she just loves driving, and she's a really good driver too. But
Yeah.
It's like us out on our bikes, parents yelling at you. Now it's, I'm texting her, where are you? It's a school night. Get home.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Back in the
So,
day,
yeah, things have changed.
just a little bit. Yeah. I mean, like back in the day, I used to play in the woods near my house. And when I heard that dinner bell, we had one of those bells up on the porch. I knew it was time to come home for dinner.
Right.
Like I was some, dog or something. It was crazy.
There's some funny videos out on Facebook. There's one lady who does it, and they talk about, like, some kid says, what was up with you guys in the 80s? You drank out of the water hose, and she's like, we weren't allowed in the house.
Right.
Don't you get it? And it goes through this whole litany of things of you just cannot even believe would be allowed to go on back then. I mean, my parents, and this isn't to throw them under the bus, but my parents got divorced. My dad lived in Tucson, which was kind of my intro to Arizona in the summers.
Okay.
And
sorry.
my mom lived and he owned a roofing company, and I roofed for him in the summers in Tucson for years. I would wake up praying for rain, but my dad has never been, I mean, I wouldn't call him cheap, but he watches money really well, still to this day, and a plane ticket was too expensive he didn't want to pay that much money for a plane ticket, so he sent a sixth grader, a fourth grader, and a kid in kindergarten on a Greyhound bus from Wichita to Tucson. Now, if you did that today, DCS would be calling you up,
yeah.
But back then, that was normal. I remember it took like a day and a half, 2 days, two days. I mean, because they stop at every little town along the way.
That's crazy. What an experience.
It was pretty nuts.
Yeah. So you have two siblings?
Yeah, I have an older brother and a younger brother.
Gotcha.
And they both live here, one here and one up, near Pine Top.
So everybody kind of migrated out here, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Where's your mom still?
My dad lives in Tucson, and my mom actually lives with us now. She's kind of the age where
Cool.
We need to be really close with her.
So it's good that you can do that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think
it's a mother-in-law suite, but so I guess my wife's mother-in-law, but she lives in the mother-in-law suite.
Oh my goodness. So okay, and your wife you met when you were living out here, but she lived in Kansas at the time?
Yeah, this is a really weird story, but amazing story. But I can go through it real quick.
Please do.
So I wouldn't say. I mean, we were kind of infamous at the restaurant we worked at back there. One, because my business partner's dad was part owner, and two, because we just had a lot of fun, and so. How restaurants become a family and stuff. And so when we left, right when she was originally from Enid, Oklahoma, and she was a single parent, moved to Phoenix with her son. And then right when I was moving to Phoenix from Wichita, she was moving from Phoenix to Wichita.
Okay.
So I went from Wichita to Phoenix. She went from Phoenix to Wichita at exactly the same time.
Oh, wow.
So then a year later, I go back to visit and went into Carlos O'Kelly's, of course, because that's where all my friends were.
Yeah.
And everybody was just like, I think you should ask her out. Nobody understands why they were saying this. And so I did, and we went out and played pool that night and had a great time. And then I came back to Phoenix, and we had our shop, Dilly's Deli in Tempe. At the time, was the only restaurant, and the Outback had just opened a mile away, and it was like all the rave back then. And so I went in there one night to watch the Final Four. Kansas Jayhawks is playing in the Final Four, and she walks out, and she's working there.
Oh, wow.
And so we've been together ever since. That was like 96 or 97.
Yeah.
And been together ever since. Now, she doesn't like the way I tell the story because I say she stalked me out here,
Well, it's funny.
I fell for
now
it.
She's moving back to Arizona.
Right. And so, yeah, it was pretty amazing. Been together ever
Wow, that's great. I mean, when you know, you know.
Yeah.
It took me a little while to know because I was just a maniac. So
Right.
when I hit about 39, that was my sweet spot.
Right.
Yeah, that's great. Okay, so restaurant business always been in your blood, understandably. You come out here, and then you basically are working and doing restaurant stuff, and then all of a sudden, like you wake up and you say, "I'm going to get into politics."
Yeah, I mean, I've always been interested in politics. I mean, I remember I became a precinct committeeman like in the early 2000s, and got to know that's a really great way, no matter what party you're in, if you want to get involved in politics, you become a precinct committeeman because all the political people come and talk to you. You just learn a lot, and you create these connections. And so I was always interested in it, and I got to a point in my restaurant career where we had managers for all the places. I mean, I was still going and work, but it wasn't like when we started, we were literally working 80 hours a week. And so, yeah, I tell the story. I was with a buddy of mine, Gary Hayes, and it was during the poker boom. I think it was 2005, 2006. And I was just asking, well, who's running for Chandler City Council? And I had some issues with some things that were going on, and I go, could I win? And he's like, yeah. And that night, playing poker, which I won the 20-man tournament that night too, decided I was running for Chandler City Council, and literally I got in so late. The election was 5 months later.
Oh, wow.
And
you won.
Pulled through, yeah.
So from what I read and from what I know of you, you've been kind of labeled more as like a sensible person's approach.
Yeah, I think it's the business person in me, where you have to be solutions-based. You can't just we don't tolerate that in the restaurant business. We don't tolerate problem pointers. You want to point out an issue, that's fine, but have a solution.
Correct.
And I think there's a good amount of people in politics that are problem pointers, but they don't necessarily come up with a solution unless it's just so draconian that it's not feasible.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
And so, I'll take that title.
Yeah, I like it. So then you have a successful run doing city council. How long did you do that?
So I did that for 8 years.
You did that for 8 years?
Yeah.
And then you go for...
And then I ran for the state house.
And you won?
And I won.
And you're another 8 years doing that?
8 years there.
So you're like 16 years total into...
Yeah. Wow. Actually, it's even almost 17 because they changed the elections during council, and they couldn't take away time that we served, so they extended our terms by like a half a year. But yeah.
So, and again, I'm politically stupid, so just excuse me if I'm asking some dumb questions here. You get sworn in, is that kind of what happens? Mm-hmm. Okay. And then what's that feeling like when you're like at the Capitol and you're going through all this and you're like, holy shit, this is like big time politics now? Yeah,
I mean, it's like any other job. Yeah. And there's a lot of good people down there. And then there's people who phone it in. And then there's people who are climbers, and they're not necessarily worried with solving what's in front of them. They're always looking, It's like the football player in game 1 of the NFL, and they're thinking about the Super Bowl instead of what's right in front of them. So you have all types, just like you do in all jobs. But I just tried to solve problems, and it's hard work. I mean, if you're going to do it and do it right.
Yeah.
I'm proud of the fact that there's people down there who run 80 bills a year. There's no way, just like that would be like you running, 20 different businesses out of this office and thinking that you're on top of every one of them. I mean, it's just...
Because the bills are pretty comprehensive, right?
Yeah, and so they run 80 bills. They don't know what's going on with all those bills. So I always ran anywhere from 15 to 20 bills.
Okay.
And I think during those 8 years, I'm going to go back and look, but I think I had the best record almost every single year of the percentage of bills that I got through, because I either got them signed into law or I got them in the budget, which is essentially signed into law. And so I would think my rate was anywhere those years between 80 and 95% every year.
And that's not a one-party thing. Like, you have to really talk to everybody to kind of get them involved.
A lot of them were very, were bipartisan bills where, sometimes they're unanimous and sometimes a bunch of Republicans are off and some Democrats are off, and I'm getting a majority in the middle.
Interesting. So you're literally in sales.
Pretty much. I've had lobbyists tell me, it's like they see me down on the floor going desk to desk, just arguing my bill and getting people on board. Wow. And just getting them. And because I'm very competitive.
Yeah.
And I can tell you are too. I'm a competitive person. And so, one, I wouldn't be running the bill unless I thought it was right. And two, I want to win. And the way you win is getting a bill. There's micro wins as you go along. You got it out of committee. You got it heard in rules. You got it off the floor. Now it's in the Senate. You start it over again,
But you want to win for the right reasons, and you're you're
Yeah.
very niche based. Really, it sounds like just even in your bills, just having 15 as opposed to 80.
Yeah, and at first I was very niche based as far as the kind of bills I ran. But as that went on, I went to a whole litany of things. Business bills, obviously, but justice reform and different things that I would look at. And sometimes it's a group effort. It's not just me getting
Right.
billed through. And there was times where I would help other people with their bills, or a lot of times something comes over from the Senate, and I'll give you one quick example. Eddie Farnsworth, who I like a lot, great Republican from Gilbert, but he's polarizing to some in the other party. And he had a great justice reform bill that basically allowed people with marijuana offenses to go through classes in jail and get early release into programs and halfway houses a lot earlier than what they were.
Makes sense.
But unfortunately, sometimes the sponsor of the bill, on both sides,
Yeah.
it has an effect where they're like, well, no, I don't like that person,
Yeah, it
so
goes
I'm
under
not going to
her.
do it. So he gave me permission to negotiate on his behalf, and I kind of took it over in the House, and we got it through and got it out. And, it was because he did such a great job in the beginning, the genesis of it, and
Yeah.
then I helped take it over and held very big productive meetings negotiating in the other side.
That's great. That's great. Well, so I got to know you through the omnibus bill committee that I'm a part of and represent the insurance industry. And from what you can recollect with and you've been so amazing to represent us, the hospitality industry on those bills. From what you can recollect, what were some of your favorite initiatives that were on some of these bills that got passed?
Well, I think the first year it was just here's the thing with being in the legislature, you have co-sponsors and you have the prime sponsor. The prime sponsor is the one who works it, negotiates it, has the absolute authority to change things in it, do amendments. I was a co-sponsor of the beer bill my first year in, which was really cool. Friends like Anthony Konecchia, who I know who owns Santan, and different people. It was just a common sense bill that needed to be done to give some freedom to the brewers of beer here in Arizona. So that was a cool start as a co-sponsor. And then a few years in, I was a chairman of commerce for 6 years, so a couple years in. And so then all the liquor bills pretty much go through your committee. And so then they all started paying a lot more attention to me and talking to me. And there was different bills, different years. There was one bill that I ran that allowed, I don't know if you've ever been to Desert Ridge or the Tempe Mall, where you can walk around with liquor in the thing. You have to have correct security. So it was like a 3-year test. And then my last year in, we made it permanent. But I insisted that we allow smaller people to do it. So it's not just creating a carve out just for these large 400,000 square feet mall owners, that it's for everyone. And so that was cool. One that I really liked that seems like not a big deal, but I think really benefited restaurants and bars is, and this was such a weird thing, but I knew about it because of my experience in restaurants, that we always had to have 19-year-olds to serve alcohol.
I like this one, yeah.
Because in Arizona, and it took me a while to figure out why, the serving age, not the drinking age, but to serve, take a bottle of beer and set it in front of a customer, you had to be 19 years old. I'm like, it's just so arbitrary and weird. I don't want it to be 21, but I could understand 21.
Yeah.
And I could understand 18. And the reason it was like that is before the federal government blackmailed all the states into changing the drinking age to 21 by threatening their highway funds. The drinking age in Arizona wasn't 18 like most states. It was 19.
Really?
And so they made it 19 because they didn't want a high school senior turning 18 and then buying beer and giving it to all their 17-year-old friends. So the serving age was 19 as well as the drinking age. Then and these are such basic things, but if you don't have people from all different experiences in the legislature, this is why things get missed. I wouldn't pick up something for insurance that an insurance person in that business would pick up if they were a legislator.
Right.
And so I picked up on that. I'm like, how in, what was it, 35 years or something from when this was done, has nobody said, why is the serving age of alcohol 19?
Yeah.
And so we changed it to 18. It wasn't tough, but I had to say, I'm not talking about the drinking age.
Right.
You know, and,
yeah, you had to clarify.
so we changed it. But if you think about the effect that had, people go off to college, and what do they want to do? A lot of people need a job.
Yeah.
Well, those people, unless they're working at a breakfast restaurant, can't wait tables their freshman year in college.
Right.
And so it really opened up opportunities for them, but also opened up vast opportunities for restaurateurs who your labor force is much tighter and the amount of people you have to choose from. And so it expanded that labor force by a whole age of going down 1 year.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah. So it's just little things that people don't even think of,
Right.
but can have, I think, a dramatic effect on a lot of different places.
And probably most people like listening here or just even out there don't even know that even happened or that
Right.
it was even a thing, you know?
I always say I run a lot of bills that aren't necessarily, now I have ran some that are front page news, but that aren't front page news, but I think they're meaningful.
Yeah.
And they're meaningful for certain sectors. I always want things to be fair. So I'm not looking, for carve outs for,
Right.
certain things, but just to bring fairness to the overall landscape. And in liquor, I can tell you that almost every sector of the industry loved me 1 year and then maybe didn't like me very much the next year because I ran something they thought was against them. But I didn't look at it as against them. I looked at it as making the landscape fair for everyone.
Completely. Yeah. So before we jot out of politics, it's my understanding that your 8 years was up, and then what, you have to take a year off or something before?
Yeah, take a couple years off. I did run for state treasurer and did not win. It was my first loss, so I'm 6-1 now.
So now you're training to get back in.
Yeah, but I'm much more. I mean, I was laid back when I was in there, as you know, but being out of it, because you said a minute ago, you're down there and it's important, and it is important, but man, everybody gets a really overinflated thought of themselves, because you have people all day coming in just telling you how great you are. Oh my gosh, you're so important. Nobody outside of there knows who the hell you are. I mean, they just don't care, don't know.
Yeah.
They got their own lives to live, and everybody, when they're doing their job, seems like it's important, and it is. And in the restaurant business, believe me, we preach equity with everyone in there. Our dishwashers at Floridino's, if they weren't working, we cannot serve our people, and then they're some of our best compensated people, because everybody's important in that chain. And so that's been one thing, and I realize this, but that's really been driven home since I've been gone, is you're not that big of a deal.
So that's a good segue. So you've had, obviously, the restaurants this whole time that, you were in office, and you were probably doing double duty, I would assume.
Oh, yeah.
Right? And
I'd be making caterings in the morning and taking phone calls, stop caterings at 9 a.m. and have a meeting in the restaurant, and then be on the floor at the Capitol, change from like these clothes that I have on that I'm going to the restaurant after this, and change into a suit and speed down to, drive down to the Capitol.
Haul ass down to, you're like Clark Kent and Superman. Yeah, and would you say, did politics help the restaurant industry? Did the restaurant industry help politics? Was it just kind of...
I mean, the experience in the restaurant industry, helps, because I had that mindset of efficiency, from the restaurants. If I can save 2 or 3 seconds on a transaction, add it up towards 500 transactions, it's a lot of time. And so you think with that mentality, and if you do that, the legislature, that's really helpful. I think it helped, and I was able to see problems that existed. During the pandemic, we'll bring up one more quick thing that I did during the pandemic. We had the executive order that allowed cocktails to go. Mm-hmm. And it was just a savior for a lot of smaller restaurants. And so I ran a bill my last year in there, to continue that and allow that on an ongoing basis. Now, I did get accused that I was doing it just for myself at my own place, and I'll say I never approached bills like that. And to this day, I don't have one of those licenses. We didn't get it. But I want fairness with everyone, and I want the small mom and pops to be able to compete and and drive revenue in extra places. And I think we saw that it wasn't, Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome, and it can be done in a responsible way.
Yeah.
I remember people arguing in committees, oh, you're going to have people drink on the way home. It's like, if they get a can of beer at the grocery store, do you think there's some kind of locking mechanism that they can't just open that in the car as it is?
Or a drive-through liquor store,
right,
which is completely legal.
And so the arguments were just a little ludicrous, but after a lot of negotiating, we ended up getting it through.
Yeah, that's definitely a big one to get passed through. I know a lot of my clients have benefited from it and still are to a certain point. But
as a Republican, it was weird because at the end, I ran lots of liquor bills. And then I was the prime sponsor of the bill to legalize sports betting. And so, Republicans usually aren't known as running gambling and liquor.
Right.
And so I was like, man, I better be careful. I'm going to get a little bit of a rep here. But the sports betting was just inevitable.
Yeah.
It's going all over the nation. You have the sports teams all embracing it. I mean, you couldn't have a team in Vegas for a long, long time just because of the betting stuff. And then not only have a team there, but everybody's embracing it. And so that was another big one in the last year.
The whole system is weird to me. I think we all have a little bit of elephants and donkeys in all of us, Just depends on, how much elephant or how much donkey. So, well, tell me about the restaurants. How is everything going? And I know you have these, what are they, pizza rolls?
We have a thing called pizza muffins out of Floridino's here, repping my great hometown guy, State 48.
What's a pizza muffin?
Pizza muffin is, and I've seen a lot of people try to do it as well, and they just discontinue it. But we basically take a dough.
Diddy's getting hungry over here.
We put in a rectangle, and you put items in it. You roll it up into a log, so it's like a roll of muffins, and then you cut them into 12 pieces, and then bake them through the oven. So we have everything. Our normal one is like ham, ground beef, sausage, cheese, and marinara. We have spicy chicken wing ones that are wing sauce, chicken and cheese, and you dip them in ranch.
Yeah.
They are so incredibly popular. It's crazy. And 4th of July, we do them. They're normally like $13 or $14 a dozen, but it's equivalent of like a medium pizza.
Yeah.
4th of July, we do them we started at $4. Can't do that anymore, but we do them for like $6. This last year, we sold 1,700 dozen in one day, and we were only open for 7 hours. So,
wait, you get 12 slices for?
You get 12 rounds. Yeah,
rounds.
They're big in each one. And then we have a food truck that only does pizza muffins.
That's right.
We just do it for big events. So we're going to be at Santan's Oktoberfest.
Cool.
And we'll do them there a lot for marketing and stuff. But yeah, they're really popular. That's our place, Floridino's. We've been there 27 years in Chandler.
Yeah.
And then we have a place called Dilly's Deli that we opened 30 years ago.
93?
93. And that's at Southern and Price. At one time, we had 4 locations, and they didn't work out. But we'd still have 2 kiosks in Sky Harbor Airport in Terminal 4. That is my first foray into mailbox money, and that's been nice because we don't do anything. They do it all.
Right. Yeah, mailbox money is the best. Ask some of these artists. Yeah.
And so, but those keep us very busy. They're both doing really well. And
are you good with what you have now, or would you like to open, a Floridino's like up north here or somewhere else? I
mean, possibly. One thing we're actually looking at is more just niche of like pizza muffins.
Yeah, I think that's great.
And, these kind of smaller carry-out delivery. Yep. We've really perfected curbside takeaway in Chandler with our Floridino's. I mean, I would challenge anybody to like go there and not be happy. I mean, usually you park in the space and you're leaving 3 minutes later at the most. So we have 12 spaces. We probably do 250 cars a day through the curbside. So we think we might be able to pivot that into kind of a carry-out. Plus, the labor is a lot better in that kind of a business. Pizza muffins are really easy to make,
right?
And you just don't need that many people to do it. Versus Floridino's, which is, we love it, it's gangbusters, but we have 80 to 90 employees that work at that location.
Yeah.
Where if you just had it's kind of like the idea of if you go to In-N-Out or Chick-fil-A, they have a very limited menu.
Yeah.
They don't have 100 items, you know.
Right.
I got hired at TGI Fridays serving tables when I got here once. I got hired. They gave me the packet. You sent me home with the menu. I'm like, nope, hell no. I'm not worrying this book this thick of recipes. So sometimes it's simple is better if
Simple
you
is
have a really
better.
quality product.
I 100% agree. And I love it's funny, it's like 2 weeks in a row I've had pizza on, because I had Anthony Spinato on last week, sitting right at the chair that you're sitting in, talking about the family business and, you know, how they've grown strategically, and, you know, it's pizza. Everybody loves pizza. I've owned 2 pizza places myself. Yeah. So I get it. I want to talk about your daily habits, your day, your non-negotiable. What is a day? I know not every day is the same, but like, what are things that you have to do in your day to make you feel, you know, complete? I think a lot of people like to hear that from all sorts of different types of people.
Yeah. Get up. You know, I'm still in the child on the home mode. It's getting very different, but, you know, tell my daughter to get out of bed 2 or 3 times, you know, and get to school. And stretch. I have back issues, so I have to stretch every day, or I just can't even leave a whole lot. Get out. I walk a lot. Cool. I'm not pumped. I should, but as soon as my back gets healed, I'll hopefully be lifting weights like you do all the time in your videos. Pray every day. It's tough because I'm still in the mode of work a lot, and so you know, I figure out what kind of caterings we got. If we have a ton of caterings at Dilly's, then I'll get up very early and be there by 6 or 7. If I don't, like today, we don't have any caterings, I'll roll in at 10:45, 10:30, 10:45, and just you know, in case things happen. And then afternoons, a lot of times are open. But here's the thing: is I'm running again for office next year. Yeah. So yesterday I had a meeting in the morning with someone. 3 or 4 times a week now, I'll start having meetings at different times. Right. So that's where it does get interesting. But I love the chaos. I mean, I'd rather be busy like that. Yeah. And having, again, you're just going from one mode to another, and a lot of it's phone calls, and so a lot of that. Check in at, you know, work a few nights at Floridino's. This weekend I'm working the food truck both days cool. at the festival. So all that we only have a limited amount of people who drive the truck, and I'm like at the top of the list. So it's kind of a beast. You know, we'll do that. Probably on my computer too much, but you know, I trade cryptocurrency some, so I've got to check in every day on that. I check the news a lot, study up on, try to stay current with issues, especially, you know, political issues that'll need to be going in. I wish I had more extracurricular stuff that I do, but I don't. I like music a lot, like you, but I just haven't been able to see a lot lately. But I went up and saw Roger Clyne, the Peacemakers, in Cottonwood a couple weeks ago. That was a lot of fun. We're going to see U2 at the Sphere. Oh, cool. They open tonight. Tonight's their first night. Yeah. I think that's just going to be the most amazing experience. And taking my son and my wife, and my business partner's going too. So my son's really first time in Vegas. He's been there once, but he wasn't 21 at the time. So. Right. So, yeah, I've learned that experiences, even if it's not a daily thing, I've traveled more in this year and a half I've been out of the legislature than I have those 16 years I was in office combined. And so experiences I just think are important. So I'd rather just a few times a year be able to go with the family and go do something cool, fun, different. Yeah. And have those experiences. That's great. I hear that a lot. That's wonderful. All right, I got a couple rapid fire questions for you. You ready? All right. You listen to podcasts before. You know this is coming. All right. Fish or Metallica? Metallica. Okay. Were you disappointed in that? Not at all. I just didn't know if you were a hippie or a rocker. I don't know. Probably understand, man. Yeah. Well, no. What's your favorite like '80s band? Yeah. Oh, U2. I've seen U2 probably 18 times. Okay. And in fact, quick story. Yeah. And I told this one time. I've told this to Governor Ducey because I thought flew out here. The last concert of the Joshua Tree Tour, I lived in Wichita. I was
Yeah.
a senior in high school. So it was 1987 because it was like in December.
I went to that in Sun Devil.
I was at the first night.
Okay.
And my brother lived in Tucson at the time, so he bought me a ticket. I think they were $5
Yeah.
at Dillard's. And so he bought me a ticket. I flew out here by myself, and I didn't have anywhere to stay. And so I worked at this place called Willie C's Cafe at the time in Wichita. And I had I was in high school, but I had a couple friends who worked there who were at Kansas State, and they were I forget what fraternity they were in. It was the same one Governor Ducey was in. I think it was, it wasn't DU, but, and so they said, well, just, Pike, they were a Pike. And they said, just tell them you're a Pike from Kansas State. And so I literally walked up, said I'm a Pike. They let me crash on the couch for 2 nights. I didn't know what Pike was. I didn't even know what the Greek alphabet was. I thought it was P-I-K-E or something.
Right.
Luckily, they didn't have a secret handshake or anything.
Yeah.
And so I stayed the night there, crashed on the couch, and saw U2. I had tickets on the floor for like the 25th row.
That's amazing.
But this guy, and again, I'm 17.
Yeah.
He's like, dude, come here. Take this pencil eraser and just erase that 2. And back then, you could do that. That 2 erased right off.
Right.
Now I was in 5th row at U2.
I still have the ticket stub.
I don't, unfortunately, but I had a cool T-shirt. I lost that. But yeah, so I flew out here. I love
That's a great
U2.
story.
And my wife is the other thing, loves U2. And her wedding song was All I Want Is You by U2.
I love
and
that song.
So,
Oh, God.
yeah, we're U2 fanatics. Anyway, I'm sorry. I interrupted your rapid fire.
No, you're good. I get that's how I get stories is out of rapid fire because they're so off the wall. Okay, beard or no beard?
Right now, beard, but it's getting really gray, so
Yeah.
might be no beard.
I noticed on some of your pictures online, like you would be like Mr. Beard, and then
Yeah, and I was coloring it back then, and then something with my skin, I would get these rash. It just would itch so bad, and
Embrace it.
The color didn't work, and then God, this is embarrassing. And then I ordered online of some organic BS stuff and literally turned my beard green. It was just ridiculous. I'm like,
yeah,
okay.
it was dog shit, probably.
Yeah.
They disguise.
Thanks. I rubbed dog shit on my face.
Oh, we all do it one time. UFOs or Bigfoot?
UFOs.
All right. Perfect. Watch sports or reality TV?
Sports. Yeah.
Okay. Are you obviously a Cardinals fan?
Yeah, I'm a Cardinals fan, huge Chiefs fan.
Okay.
Because that was our team back there. And my daughter, so my sons didn't like football at all,
No.
didn't like sports. My daughter's incredibly athletic, can pick up any sport, and loves football. And so she's been a big Chiefs fan. Like, she'll sit down, and my wife used to complain. She's like, finally get a girl. She just wants to sit and watch football with Dad, you know? And so she was just bugging the crap out of me this last year. It's like, Dad, let's go to the Super Bowl. And I'm like, honey, do you know how much money that is? And she just kept, and my wife was like, take her to the Super Bowl. I'm like, honey, it's a lot of money.
It's a lot of pizza rolls.
And it finally got to the point, though, it was a few days ahead of time, and the prices were coming down, and I got to thinking, I'm like, when is your team in the Super Bowl,
Yeah.
and it's in the city that you live, where you don't have to go and pay $10,000 to stay somewhere
Good
else?
point.
And so we went. We had like, I don't know, 15th row seats in the end zone. It was amazing. It was just
And you'll
really
never
amazing
forget it the rest of your life.
Never.
Yeah.
Again, experiences, you know,
Yeah, that's really cool.
with her, too.
All you can eat or fine dining?
Fine dining, you know, if you can go to Steak 44 or something, you know,
Yeah.
the new Mastro's place, something like that. Or even, you know, somewhere in Chandler, yeah.
Yeah.
Not all you can eat.
No. Would you rather do a fundraiser or go to the doctor?
A fundraiser. They used to drive me crazy asking people for money, and you know, after a while, you just put the pride aside, you know, just embrace the suck. But yeah.
Okay.
Doctor's not as bad as dentist, but yeah.
I was gonna put dentist. That's so
Yeah.
funny. Hike or a massage?
Oh wow. Probably massage, yeah.
Yeah, especially with your back and everything.
Yeah.
Thin crust or regular?
Thin, I guess it depends on the place how it is, but yeah, thin crust. We were talking about this yesterday we have a manager meeting at Florentino's every week, and we have 6 managers, and they've all been there for 15 years or more, which we're proud of. I think that means that we don't suck as a boss.
No.
And we were all talking about favorite pizza outside of here. And there's favorite pizza and then what you do in a hurry if you gosh, I need some food and need it delivered, and if I go to Florentino's, I'm gonna get put to work, kind of thing. And so there was 2 different categories, but there's some good pizza places. We got Craft 64 in Chandler, which is really good. There's a place in Cottonwood, which is just amazing. God, what is the name of that? It's owned. The same guy who owns all the.
Eric.
Owns that hotel.
Like
he owns all the. Yeah, Bocce.
Bocce. Yeah.
Just phenomenal pizza. And so there's a lot of good
a lot of
pizza
good stuff
places
out here.
there.
A lot of good pies in Arizona. The stock market or buying land?
I would change it and say, because
Crypto.
what I'm looking at right now is buying, homes.
Okay.
And, if there's a downturn and opportunities, buying homes, because I just think this rental market in Arizona is going to be just phenomenal for
a long time.
A very long time. And so accumulating that kind of stuff. Land, you got to develop it. You're going to have a lot more money. But,
okay.
It's
an acceptable answer.
Yeah.
And then last but not least, public speaking or waiting tables?
Probably public speaking at this point. I mean, I was a badass waiter in my day. I mean, I remember it was funny back in those times. I was 21, I held the sales record at our place. And it was a big place. I mean, we'd have 30 or 40 people working at a time. It was a high volume Mexican restaurant in Wichita. And I held that sales record for a while, and that was a big deal to me. I used to love waiting tables. And I love working in the restaurant still, and there's aspects of doing everything.
Yeah.
But, what was the question? Was that
public speaking or?
Yeah, but public speaking is just. I really try to conduct myself almost like this now when I'm speaking anywhere. I just try to be yourself. I learned that a long time ago. I've never lied as a politician, but I remember going door to door when I first ran for city council, and I just found myself. Of course, I was really young too. Found myself trying to contort myself and what I thought that person was trying to say.
Right.
And now, I changed that very quickly. And if you just say what you actually believe, 1, you're not lying, don't feel slimy, and 2, you don't forget it because it's what you truly believe. So you're going to say the same answer later on.
No, I love that. I definitely live by that mantra for sure. So
and it gets to be a thing real quick is that, and this is I think in business or politics or anything. People take things too personally. Just because you disagree with someone on an issue.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean there should be animus between the two.
Right.
Just means you disagree on an issue.
Right.
And in the political world, and especially the lobbying world, you figure that out a little bit. You're like, oh, well, okay, we'll catch you on the next one.
Yeah, we'll
push
go grab
this
a
one
beer
aside.
later. Yeah.
Right. And there just needs to be more of that, whether it's politics, personal thing, neighbors, business. I mean, it's just not necessarily personal. You should still conduct yourself in a above board way, but we're going to disagree on things occasionally.
Yeah, just love each other, man. Right? Yeah. Where can people? I'm going to put all this in show notes, but since I have you vocally here and I can do Chat GPT, where can everybody find? Well, first of all, vote for him. He's running for office again. Number 1. Number 2, go to your restaurant. So where can everybody find you, and what do you want to share?
So our restaurant, Florentino's, is in Chandler on Alma School, halfway between Ray and Chandler, and our website is florentinos.net, FLORIDINOS.net. And then Dilly's Deli, gourmet sandwich shop, is at Southern and Price, and it's dillysdeli.com. Love to see you come in.
Yeah, that'd be fun, and might see you back there cooking pizzas.
You might, or running food out, or doing whatever. As a politician, people, they can find me if they disagree with someone. I've had many, cordial conversations over the bar, serving someone a beer, talking about specific issues. Or, I'm really big into constituent service. If you can solve a problem for someone, they shouldn't have to go to their elected official, but you can cut through the bureaucracy sometimes by doing that.
1,000%. That's great. Yeah, there's not many built like you, for sure. I know I'm not built. I'm too, I don't know, too fragile, I think.
Yeah.
Anyways, thank you so much for doing this. This is a blast. What great stories and a lot of good snippets I'll get out of you. So
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody, for listening. Please subscribe to the podcast. It definitely helps with viewership and all that. Give us a 5-star. And thanks for listening to some of the past episodes. And until next time, I hope you all have a wonderful day. Peace out.